This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
Real Talkers, in this episode of the show, we're going to promise we are going to blow your mind. We can't make that promise every single episode, but this one, virtually a guarantee, as Real Talk recognizes Canadian Innovation Week, a Real Talk roundtable with three Athabasca University community makers who are making huge splashes in their communities, including a champion beatboxer. You're not going to want to miss it. That's coming up on this episode of the show. If you're listening to this later on the podcast or watching us after we've streamed live on YouTube, you can skip ahead about 15 minutes if you want to go straight to the Innovators. But before we do that, there is something very important, something extremely important, something today arguably more important than anything else. No, it's not Parliament back in session. No, it's not thousands of city and town councillors gathering at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. No, it's something much more important than that. It's not out of the White House. It's not out of the EU. It's not out of some global superpower and organization. We're going to get to that in 30 seconds. But before we get to the most important subject matter of the day, let me remind you that this episode of Real Talk happens with the support of We Know Training, and you can find them online at wkt.ca. That's We Know Training, a proudly Canadian company that is absolutely transforming work that is being done in the online training space. But it's not just another training software company. We Know Training partners with governments, regulators, businesses across the country to manage entire credentialing programs. Think of it as plug-and-play training that's built for trust, compliance, and real-world impact. Led by subject matter experts, lifelong learners, We Know Training brings a human touch to tech-powered education. You can learn more by checking out their website. That's wkt.ca. All right, obviously the most important story of the day, the story that will impact everybody more than anything else, the story that we must not and cannot ignore. The Edmonton Oilers have achieved Western Conference champion status again. For the second year in a row, they will face off against the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final. The intrepid producer of this show, John Hicks, at the outset of what was proving, or at least forecasted to be a very, very tough series against the Dallas Stars, had predicted that the Edmonton Oilers would win the thing in 5 games, and the critics scoffed. Some of the critics even laughed, pointing out that Dallas has one of the fastest, strongest, youngest, most skilled teams out there, plus their wily veterans, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, and the rest. But Johnny, you stood true. You stood strong in your prediction of 5 games, and it ended up manifesting itself last night. How do you feel today?
I feel like I should have bet money on this, Ryan. That's what I
you
feel like.
You didn't bet a single dollar on it, eh?
I missed an opportunity here.
Yeah, how did you feel about the game last night? It was a decisive win from start to finish. Oilers up 2-0. Dallas pulls their star goalie, Jake Ottinger, of course, who won silver at the Four Nations face-off earlier this year, will remind you, but one of the league's best and brightest young goaltenders with 8 more years on his deal in Dallas, yanked about 8 minutes into the game. His backup, Casey DeSmith, lets in another one right away. The Edmonton Oilers end up, exactly. The Oilers, no disrespect to Mr. DeSmith, who has achieved more in professional athletics. It used to be in Pittsburgh, but so there they go. The Oilers basically roll through Dallas, American Airlines Arena, big win, and are on to the Stanley Cup Final. You had confidence in them from the beginning, and you deserve credit. You deserve a shout-out right off the top of the show.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm not sure pulling that goalie last night was a good move or not. I get it. You're trying to shake up the bench and do this and that, but I didn't think the first 2 goals were bad goals. I thought they were goals that any goalie might have got taken on, so I thought that was strange, but when the third goal went in and they went to the coach, the shot of the Dallas coach, his face was just like,
Peter DeBoer. He just knew that.
He's just like on Indeed in his head looking for jobs. Like he's not even at the game anymore. It was great. And then the Moss Pit, we actually had to shut it down. Some crazy weather here last night.
Well, it was, I
like
think,
Wizard of Oz
anybody that was watching on TV, and I don't know, did you see your screens, the ones that you have in front of those thousands of people at the Moss Pit just outside Rogers Place? That's a direct feed from the that's from the cameras in the arena feeding directly to your screen. So I'm assuming maybe you didn't see the big red storm warning. Was your broadcast interrupted at all? I mean,
all our phones and watches and everything went off, and you look down at the crowd and everyone was looking at their phones too. So we were just wondering, like, at what point do we call this? So we called it, second intermission. We told everyone, hey, event's over. Everyone started booing. I'm like, wait, you could go home or you can go inside. As soon as I said go inside, everyone ran inside. And there's footage up now of, just online of everyone storming inside. And then they either stayed in Ford Hall and listened to the audio of the game and watched some of the TVs that were
That's probably pretty fun.
In Hockey House. Or I think about half or 3/4 went inside. So it was a crazy mad stampede to get inside. And I actually went home because I was like, I'm going to get some sleep tonight. And it was already like, I just knew they were going to win. Like, even if they don't win this game, like we have this series, it was just kind of, the air of it was like, and you can even tell Darnell Nurse, I listened to his interview this morning. He's like, this is a great feeling, but like, we're chasing one thing here, right?
Yeah.
And that's a rematch and a win in the final.
And everybody's sharing the clip today. I think that Lauren McDavid shared it, Connor's wife, on her Instagram story. Remember in the handshake last year after Game 7 Stanley Cup Final, Matthew Tkachuk sort of taps Connor McDavid on the helmet and it says something along the lines of like, we'll see you here next year. Yeah. And so there you get it. You get the rematch.
And I think everyone knows that these, it's always like there's a bit of puck luck, but this year we know these definitively. These are the two best teams in the NHL, undoubtedly. They both won. They won all their series except for the Panthers, who went 4-3 with Toronto. They won 4-2, 4-1. Edmonton 4-2, 4-1, 4-1. Like
Edmonton steamrolling.
These
I think
are the
probably,
teams.
And one of the reasons certainly why I think people trust Real Talk for integrity-driven analysis and reporting. Nobody else is pointing out that the Oilers have been on an absolute heater since you dyed your hair platinum blonde. And I just want to keep reminding people this. I haven't heard it on the local shows. I haven't seen it on the national broadcast. But I hope that you are enjoying the sort of status that you're achieving, having seen the Oilers as an absolute.
I love being called the real Slim Shady all through the playoffs by and like the CCO of the NHL and the lead, the guy who's kind of the director of all the game directors texts me and he's like, you're a star these days, because he saw me on Sportsnet. But I'm taking a back seat because I was too amped up last year. I was too like, we're gonna win, it's all about us, blah blah. I'm gonna be the word for this final is subtle, subdued. I'm just going to be like confident, but like strong, subtle in the background.
You're channeling the energy that Connor's putting out there. In his post-game interview with our buddy Gene Principe, he says the exact same thing. He says this year just feels a little bit different. They're a little bit more. He said it was less emotional. You remember that Amazon series that took us behind the scenes of some of the NHL clubs, and you remember Connor was like losing his mind in the dressing room, in a good way, in a captain's way, in a leader's way, but losing his mind in the dressing room after the Oilers were down -2 in the first two games of the final last year. Remember, he was like, right fucking now, just screaming.
I said
and
salad dressing on the side.
Get off my lawn. But this year, it's like they're settled in, right? You lose your first two against Los Angeles. Everyone's kind of wondering what's up. And then it's 4 straight. And then, like you said, 4-1 against Vegas, 4-1 against Dallas. Now, of course, we're getting excited. Of course, we're probably getting way too ahead of ourselves. We're going to run into the best team in the National Hockey League, in the Florida Panthers, with apologies, by the way, to the Winnipeg Jets. They won the President's Trophy, but it's hard to see them there. There's great teams that fell along the way. Let's acknowledge Colorado could be here, right? They're not here. There's a lot of great teams.
Great team doesn't make a Stanley Cup champ.
The Edmonton Oilers, you're absolutely right, have earned their way there. In our live chat, powered by Park Power, Ken K says Jake Ottinger in Dallas, great goalie. He says the Oilers just had his number, and Skinner was in the Stars' head. How about, by the way, Jeff Skinner? We called it just a short time when we heard that, of course, Zach Hyman was out for the rest of the year. Jeff Skinner comes in, first playoff game in more than 1,000 NHL games, scores a goal. Unbelievable. Love to see that. And Ken K goes on to say Pete DeBoer is definitely freshening up his resume today. Others of you, and I see you, Alberta girl, in the chat. She says, hockey is the topic today. She said, no, hang on a sec. Don't worry. We've got Canadian Innovators coming up in the top political stories as well. This is real life. This is what everybody's talking about around the water cooler. And we are 80 feet from the arena. So our lives are about to get bonkers for the next 2 weeks. Tommy Temper says when the storm hit, he was riding his e-bike across the high-level bridge. Jeez, Tommy. Says it was like being in a tornado. Some of you are saying that Peter DeBoer, the head coach of Dallas, his post-game comments about his goalie, Ottinger, were a little wild. Did you see this? He was asked why he yanked him 8 minutes into the game. He says he lost 6 of the last 7 against the Oilers and let in 2 on the first 2 shots. What do you expect me to do?
Oh, yeah, that's
Somebody
not a great record.
Coaches push buttons. They'll have the offseason to think about it, but Jake Ottinger's not going anywhere. He's got 8 more years on his deal in Dallas, so that's a hell of a thing to say about. I mean, Ottinger is arguably, maybe aside from Mikko Rantanen, probably, and maybe Miro Heiskanen, maybe, but he's the
top 10
top player in Dallas. He's a top 3 player in Dallas, and so that's a heck of a thing to say about a goalie that just kind of couldn't deliver when his team needed him the most.
It's a lot mental in the playoffs. We saw last year Skinner when we went down 3-rip in the final. Like, just mentally, you have to be there 100% as well. It could be little things like, I don't know, maybe got stomach problems. Maybe you had a headache. Like, it's a million things that could go into it. And Jake Ottinger he wasn't there for this series. But also, like, Dallas they got to make some changes now, right? And they don't have a lot of cap space. But that's a team was really good. But now their chances, like, that's your last chance, right? You got to do changes now.
I see at least a couple of you, Tara Lynn and Alberta Rancher, both in the chat. I don't know if I'm not speaking for Alberta Rancher, who's just noting that Connor touched the Clarence Campbell trophy. He touched the trophy. Carolyn says, I gasped when he touched it. The superstition, obviously, that most players don't touch the hardware until they win the Stanley Cup, and then they'll touch it, pick it up, kiss it, raise it over their heads. But Connor says last year he didn't touch it. This year he figures he'd shake it up. I like it.
And the Panthers touched it last year.
Yeah.
And
won.
This year they didn't. So, does it mean anything? We could go back. And I could literally get the stats if you want. That's what we'll do Monday. I'll come with the stat of
who touches and who doesn't.
Of the teams that touched it and won, and the teams that didn't touch it and didn't win, and vice versa. And you know what? It's different every time. It's a superstition thing. It's like guys who don't wash their socks, or like to wear wet gloves instead of getting them dried. Like it's a flip of the coin. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so I'm feeling, cautiously optimistic. We have the dates for the Stanley Cup Final. You and I are both thrilled that neither's game 5, 6, nor 7, hypothetically, will fall on the Real Talk Golf Classic. We've dodged a bullet.
I'll give a window because of my connections to the NHL and stuff. We knew ahead of time because we needed to know about this.
We couldn't tell
tournament.
anybody, though.
But we couldn't tell anyone. And it's funny seeing all the sports analysts being like, this is potential dates. And I'm just in the back, like,
we know exactly what they are.
But yeah, we knew the last 4 games, which actually they got bumped up a little because I think most people thought these series would go longer than 5 games.
Both of them
apiece,
quick, right?
Right. So, and it's people still complaining online though, Ryan. Why are we playing hockey in June? Why not? Let's play hockey all year round.
It's the best. It's the absolute best.
So
when you don't get it, right? Like when your team has missed, for many years, it sucks to not have your team playing hockey in the spring into the summer. It sucks.
Let's do this here. Your prediction. What do you think?
Yeah.
If the Oilers win, how many games?
Yeah,
Final.
I'm going to say, again, I think I'm feeling it right now. The universe is giving me this. I think they're going to win it on home ice in 7 games.
Okay. I was just going to say, I think as well, I think it's going to be a reverse of last year because we got home ice advantage. We're rolling. Both goalies are hot. McDavid, Draisaitl, everyone's fired up except for obviously the loss of Hyman is a big loss. But I'm going to say the same thing. I think we're going to go up like 2, maybe 3-1. And I just know the Panthers, they're a long play team, right?
Yep, they don't panic.
They grind. I think it's going to be game 7 in Edmonton.
I like it.
Oilers win.
Yeah, and we are going to have to cash in our kids' RESPs so we can get tickets to that game because I don't remember.
Well, I'm going to be at the mall anyways, but you better believe me, man. Like, because I do.
You're going to be working.
Yeah, but
you're going to be outside.
But I do the games with another DJ. You know that.
Yeah.
And like he's been doing it a little less than I have. I've been doing it 3 years. I brought him on.
You have seniority.
I brought him on the 2nd year because I'm like, I want to share this with someone. Also, like, I have other events. Occasionally I'll miss or have to be late or leave early from a game. But man, you're not going to be able to stop me from running into that arena if they win the cup. You're not going to be able. I'm just going to flash the pass and run.
I'll be your cable runner. Can I run your cable? I'm infamous as cable runner. I just think that people in Edmonton, and there's Oilers fans across the country, plus there's going to be people with deep pockets coming from Florida. to buy tickets for these games as well.
Oh, they're already
Tickets
online
for the Stanley
today,
Cup
right?
Final. Like, let's be real. On the secondary site, so this is like season ticket holders selling their tickets back through Ticketmaster, let alone wherever else people are buying them, Game Time, StubHub, and all the apps. Tickets in the first round were like $700, $800, $900 a seat for lower bowl. By the second round, you're looking at like $1,000 a seat in the upper deck. This past round against Dallas, people were paying $1,500 a seat. Many cases in the upper deck. Some of you were emailing us and telling us that. I can't even imagine what prices are going to do. Most people will be priced out of attending games in the rink.
Oh, yeah.
Most hardcore fans will still find a way to do it. People will be foregoing the summer golf trip. Someone will sell their quad or their jet boat. People are going to find ways to get into that rink. What is the maximum you would pay out of your pocket to be sitting in a seat in Game 7 to watch? You know you're going to see the Stanley Cup. Game 7, you know you're going to see it. You don't know who's going to hoist it.
Yeah.
What would you pay per seat? What was the maximum you would pay per seat?
I don't know. I'm a stingy bastard. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you have a pass to get in.
If I knew it was for sure Oilers going to hoist the cup, maybe like 5.
Yeah,
maybe like 5. But here's the other thing. I've had some incredible memories and moments in Rogers Place already. Like, got to be there as the DJ when they opened the barn. Got to see Connor play his first game in the barn. Got to see him grow as a player. Got to see did the bubble when nobody else was in there. It was just like NHL and staff.
Yeah.
Got to see the cup that way in the back in the back hallways. Got to see the cup up close. Did not touch it. Just for the record, did not touch it. Got a picture next to the keeper of the cup and him. But got to see, I think it was Tampa Bay Lightning. They won that year. So I've had more than my share of memories close to the cup, close to the teams that have won the cup, close to the Oilers. So as you said, like, it may be that the Moss Pit is just such a crazy party that I just stay out there, and God help me, I'll be happy with that, Ryan. The city is so electric.
No matter where you are watching it, you're going to have a blast.
Yeah. And after, like, just the streets and everything, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Why are we doing this?
We are getting way ahead of ourselves.
Let's get to
Just imagine. No, we're not going to start talking about parades. This is how you get burned. This is how the Oilers get smoked 4 in a row. As we start talking about parades ahead of time.
You have to plan a parade, though.
Of course.
When you get to like Game
Not
5,
fans,
6,
not emotionally.
But the people working at Rogers and the Oilers, they have to start planning logistics. And even they were like, we fucking hate doing it.
A buddy of mine who lives in Edmonton but is not an Oilers fan, he's a big fan of the Calgary Flames, told me that the only consolation that he will have if the Oilers do win the Stanley Cup is that the Oilers Cup parade will be absolutely polluted by road construction. He said there is not a single route that they can take. There's not a single route through downtown they can take.
There's 2 seasons here
that will not be polluted by road
winter and construction.
So that's consolation for the Calgary Flames fans. How about this from Erica? Erica, I don't blame your hubby. I get where he's coming from. She says, my husband just made a big bet on Florida to win. His reasoning is that having a bunch of extra cash could soften the blow of a hypothetical Oilers loss. She says, I've told him he needs to have some confidence in the team. This is called the emotional hedge.
Yeah.
The emotional hedge is when you bet against your team so the money arrives as your heart is broken.
So as you're crying, you're like, I'm going to go spend this money on a trip or at the bar. So we got a poll and a Q&A up. We'll hit back to it after our guests
okay, what's the poll going on in the live
the
chat
poll
on YouTube?
The poll is Oilers or Cats. And then the question is, if Oil win in how many games. So we've got a question on how many games, and we've got a poll on who's going to win, Oilers or Cats.
Okay, that's got to be 90% Oilers, I hope.
86 right now. I'm a little upset about that.
Jason says after flying to New York last fall, he shelled out $1,100. I'm assuming USD. So Jason, let's call it 15. Shelled out $1,100 to watch his beloved Dodgers in the World Series. Says unforgettable memories. Incredible, Jason. What an investment. Amazing. Go Dodgers, by the way. Love that. $1,100. That actually seems pretty reasonable. How screwed up is it that we're getting to a point now when we hear someone paid like $1,000 to go to a game? We're like, wow, you got like a great price on that. Congratulations. I feel like Game 7 Stanley Cup Final, those tickets are going for $5,000 a pop no matter what.
Sure.
That doesn't matter where they are in the rink. And some people will pay for, a third of their playoffs or half of their season tickets or whatever by selling their tickets. I've always wondered, too, though, you came this far with season tickets. How could you possibly sell Game 7? So who knows? We'll see where we're watching Game 1 in just a few sleeps, friends, and obviously we're going to have some fun with it. We're big Oilers fans. John and I have both worked for the team. Johnny's still over there. We're right across from the rink, so there is going to be some Oilers chat on the show through the Stanley Cup Finals, and maybe we'll have an announcement or two, perhaps a partnership. You'll just have to stay tuned and wait and see. We're celebrating Canadian Innovation Week in just a second on our Real Talk Roundtable, but first I want to remind you that this show enjoys an incredible relationship with California Closets of Canada, and we're so very proud of what they've been doing over the past while with their Alberta manufactured installations. Nobody is doing a better job when it comes to custom closets and storage solutions than California Closets of Canada. You can find them online at californiaclosets.ca. That's where you can request your free consultation. See the work that they're doing in bedrooms, workspaces, living areas, and garages. They can work with any space. They can work with any budget. And you got nothing to lose by checking in with their team. That free consultation, no risk, sit down, you talk to them about your vision, they talk to you about the options, and then you go from there. CaliforniaClosets.ca is where you can get started today. North Road Investment Council, experts in answering the questions, or at least helping you understand which questions you should be asking about your financial future. North Road Investment Council, a steady hand and studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. Successful saving can create unexpected challenges, and that's where their financial advisors come in. If you're wondering how you can protect your savings from taxes, inflation, or a market crash, if you're wondering if you should take your CPP early or wait, you can check in with Marshall, Carey, and the team, chartered financial analysts, certified financial planners. They've got you covered, and you're going to pay a per-hour fee. No commissions paid by selling you investment products. It's true independence with North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. And as you're heading into this weekend, if your plan is, or at least you'd love to come across a job posting that would maybe breathe a little new life into your career, maybe give you a reason to get excited on Monday mornings, take 2 seconds and check out kuby.ca. That's kuby.ca. Integrated Renewable Solutions. If you look at their Solar by Kuby page, you can check out the careers link. We're helping them put the best possible candidates into important roles in this company. Pretty cool to hear from Kuby's CEO, Jake Comiskey, the other day at their headquarters in Kamloops. A real talker, Johnny, comes up to him, says he heard about the job posting on the show. He's now working with Kuby in Kamloops. I asked Jake, I said, so how's it working out? He goes, he's one of our best employees. Love it when a plan comes together. They've got positions right now in Kelowna, Lethbridge, Calgary, Kamloops, Edmonton, you name it. Kuby would love to talk to you, including, by the way, a great opportunity for some electrical engineer talent down in southern Alberta. That's kuby.ca. Check out the careers link today. Well, perfect coming off talking about solar to remind you that it's Canadian Innovation Week this week. And in partnership with our friends at Athabasca University, we're going to be checking in with 3 Canadian innovators who are doing incredible things in their space. Dr. Raewyn Sleeman is the founder and CEO of Stratagease. And her team's mandate is to give micro business owners confidence through this marketing strategy app. They diagnose challenges and simplify success so owners know what they need even if they have no marketing experience. Bradley Pierson transforms DNA into answers. He's the founder of Trouvay, which is a DNA genealogy firm based out of Alberta's capital. He's helping solve cold cases and bring home the missing. And James McInnes is a Métis entrepreneur and a former Canadian beatbox champion who founded Prompty to make in-person networking more efficient, more enjoyable, and more secure. James has a remarkable story from foster care to founder. He lives to connect and to create. A warm welcome to the 3 of you, and thank you so much for making time for us as we recognize Canadian Innovation Week. James, this is the very first time that a beatbox champion has ever appeared on the show, so thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, very cool to have all three of you here. Johnny, do we have that video ready? I want to just give our audience members an understanding, and we're going to dig into all three of these businesses and recognize not just the innovation that's happening, but the talent that's driving it. But you want to hear what a beatbox champion sounds like? Here he is. Here's James.
Once, float.
Absolutely incredible stuff.
Listen.
That's James beatboxing under the name Peter Pot. James, how did you get into that? What an incredible art form.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I was making some sounds in class in high school and entrepreneurship class of all classes.
Wow.
My peer said, look it up on YouTube, look up beatboxing. And this was when YouTube was just new, still kind of a growing thing, and saw people making music with their mouth. And I said, well, if they have a mouth and they could do it, I have a mouth, so I could do it too. And I just started practicing and teaching myself.
Amazing. So you rise to basically, I mean, you were a Canadian champion, right? And you rise to prominence, international competitions. Was that something that you recognized early that you had a real skill or a real ability to do, or was that just like hundreds of hours of practice?
It was a bit of both. I think part of who I am is that I am very ambitious. I just sort of have this passion, this burning passion to do something or grow and learn in some way. And so with beatboxing, it really resonated with me because I can practice it anywhere. I could be in the shower, I could be at the bus stop. My instrument's always with me. And so it was a perfect outlet for me to refine and hone this craft. And I love music, but because I grew up in foster care and you don't really have money for pianos or guitars, and then also the lessons and all these sorts of things. But as soon as I saw beatboxing and it's just a mouth and it's quite clear they were self-taught, and I said, okay, what's stopping me? So I just got to work.
Really incredible stuff. I want to come back to that story in just a second, and obviously we want to get to know each one of you both personally and professionally. But Bradley, as soon as we mentioned the work that you're doing with your DNA genealogy firm, our live chat lit up right away, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, cold case files! Here we go!" It's one of the biggest genres in the podcast industry. People are fascinated by cold case files. People love when either something is solved or maybe when someone is found and brought home, reunited with their family. How did you get started in this area of discipline?
I started tracing my family tree at the age of 13. I was fascinated to know, like, where did I come from? Like, who are my people? And after about 10 years of searching through my tree, DNA testing became popular. And so I started helping people to find their birth parents. And after helping about 100 people find their families, I realized I could probably help solve some cold cases. So I founded Trouvay and I started reaching out to law enforcement agencies and we started working on cases, and here we are. We mostly do violent crime and unidentified human remains. And violent crime meaning homicide or sexual assault. So these are some crazy, crazy cases, and most of them are quite historic. So meaning like 20 years old unsolved.
This is like, people can check out your website, Trouvay.ca. We'll link to it in the show notes to make it nice and convenient. But I'm looking at a whole bunch of different case files that you have posted. How about this one? The 1907 adoption, 115 years, more than a century after Tommy's grandfather was placed for adoption. He found your company, and your researchers were able to solve a mystery and identify his great grandparents. This is a private citizen that approaches you with a challenge, with a mystery to be solved.
Exactly. We do a couple of things. We can take DNA and identify ancestors, whether that's a parent, a grandparent, or in my case, we were even able to find my two times great grandfather's father. He ended up being illegitimate, we found out. And so DNA is powerful for finding these mysteries and solving them. And so we help individuals find their family, and then we also help law enforcement solve these cases.
Is law enforcement reaching out to you, or are you reaching out to them? How does that work?
A little bit of both. We've had agencies across the country reach out saying, we've got a case that's 30 years old we want to work on. And then we've also approached agencies and said, hey, this technology is finally here to solve what was previously impossible to solve. So a little bit of both.
Very cool stuff. We'll get to more of your comments, and I want to encourage our live tuning audience right now that are watching our Real Talk live stream presented by California Closets to chime in on the chat. You can also send us an email during the show or after to talk@ryanjespersen.com. Let us know what's resonating with you or any questions you may have for our panelists. Dr. Sleeman giving micro business owners confidence. We know from our conversations with our friends at different chambers of commerce and business advocacy groups that it's something like 80 to 85% of Canadians are working for small or medium-sized businesses. When we're talking about micro businesses, we're talking, what, 1, 2, 3 employees, the real grassroots kind of stuff?
Hi, Ryan. The micro business is mostly less than 9 employees. So it is about 97% of businesses worldwide are classified as micro. But the problem is the resources that are available for them are quite challenging to access, particularly marketing, because they don't really understand it. But any supplier to them expects they do understand enough to even at least brief them and or critique what they've provided. And the truth is they don't.
Yeah, and I think that probably, and obviously you'll hear me speak from a little bit of experience sometimes, a little personal testimony infused into my questions, but for a lot of small or micro business owners, they're taking on way too much. They're trying to shoulder like 3, 4, or 5 times the load they should probably be trying to carry, and I would imagine marketing and promoting their business is a recurring one of those, is it?
It is, absolutely. And what's interesting is because particularly for an owner-founder, a lot of our ego gets involved in the decisions we make for our business. And so even, I think 20% of the users of our app actually have a marketing background. Just because you know marketing and can market for someone else doesn't mean that you understand how to do it for your own business, particularly because there's that, I call it the owner-founder conundrum, that our personal emotions get involved in our decisions. And so it's hard enough for those who know marketing, those who don't, right? The chefs, the plumbers, the bakers, the cafe, they're great at what they do. But the reality is they haven't been taught marketing. And so it's a completely different discipline, and it's complicated and it's continually changing. But we're expecting them to learn it. When, if you're a hairdresser, don't you want to find out about the latest hair techniques rather than having to become a marketer? And the truth is they do.
Yeah, no kidding. So in the context of Canadian Innovation Week, and by the way, Doctor, I'll congratulate you and let people know that Athabasca University has actually featured you on their Instagram account. I'm sure you saw this earlier this week, talking about how you're pushing boundaries, how you're helping solve problems. Congratulations on the feature. How does the app actually work?
So the app audits what people are already doing. So it's asking very simple questions that any business owner can know. There's no marketing jargon because they don't understand it and we're not asking them to be. So our main focus is asking them basic questions about what they're doing, the status of their business, their activities, and then we audit that. And then we have some funding from AWS. They're building a whole new platform for us. That means that not only are we auditing and giving them this is what you should do, it will now be able to do it all for them. So it's a complete creation, scheduling, posting, etc. So they will know what they need to do, but more importantly, they won't then have to do it or learn how to do it. It will be done for them.
Early feedback has to have been really encouraging, I would imagine. That's going to be transformative for some small businesses.
It is. We've had kind of over about 80,000 downloads so far, and so over kind of 20,000 users at the minute. And so it's the feedback that I get from micro business owners and the messaging that they send to me. I get so many emails about saying how it's really improved themselves both professionally and personally, because it helps them to know what's important. Because there's millions of voices screaming with clickbait saying this is what you need to be doing now, when in reality most of the time it isn't. And so when you asked about what do we do, it's we're auditing everything that I've found in research and in testing that gives potential customers trust in our businesses. And once we figure those ones out, in reality, a lot of it is set and forget. But of course, the market, the industry is continually trying to sell you something and to keep you as a customer. But I think that's broken because you don't really need it. There's specific things they do need to do, and then maintain them. And the reality is customers will trust them and come to them.
Raewyn, by the way, Tracy in our live chat just is giving you a 10 out of 10 on your background, on your Zoom background today. We all need to know, are those real live fresh tulips behind you?
they're actually they're not live tulips, believe it or not. We were recently in Amsterdam, in Holland, and for the tulips, because of course had to go and see the tulips.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and no, they're not. They were the most amazing fake tulips I have ever seen in my life. So
well, they fooled me. They fooled
I know,
me.
they're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. So, James, we're taking a look here at your site right now, prompty.ca, where people can learn more about how you're helping facilitate networking the way it should be. I guess building off what Raewyn was just talking to us about, connecting businesses to their ecosystems, to their potential or existing customers. You're more one-to-one, a personal relationship manager. How does this work?
Yeah, you got it. Personal relationship manager. Yeah, and as Raewyn was saying, trust, like she was mentioning trust, I feel like that's becoming even more important now. Trust is the ultimate human currency. And when we're looking at artificial intelligence and the impact that's having on our culture and our society, trust is becoming more crucial than ever before. And your network as an entrepreneur, I believe is your most valuable asset. It's a force multiplier for your time, your money, your knowledge. People often say it's about who you know. It's not just who you know, it's how you know them. That is paramount to your success as an entrepreneur. And if you don't have clients and you don't have a team, you don't have a business. So your network is invaluable. But it's a very underserved aspect of entrepreneurship. I recognized very early on when I was in a recurring entrepreneurship group, was going for 3 months every Wednesday. I was the only one in this circle of 20 people writing down everyone's names and businesses on a piece of paper with a pen. And the following week, I remembered everyone and I remembered their businesses just because I took that simple action and just because I reviewed that before the meeting that night. Whereas other people might have remembered one or two. Sometimes you'll be at an event and you'll forget somebody's name within like 20 by the end of the sentence, but like you just forget it right away, and then you become avoidant. You're saying bye to them at the party. Maybe you don't even say bye to them because you feel bad because you forgot their name. Whereas I don't have that problem thanks to Prompty. And so I've created this platform that helps you to exchange information seamlessly and securely, and then you're able to remember people's names and details better. That's really our big value proposition. We're trying to build trust between people and between businesses and their customers, and manage those relationships. I think that it's integral. Right now, your options before Prompty, you have business cards. 88% get thrown out within a week. You have a lot of people in business events, we use LinkedIn QR codes. But LinkedIn, you look at your news feed, you get lost, you get distracted. How do you know where and when you met somebody? How do you make private notes to remember the context of the conversation? Talking with people to try to figure out their solutions that they've MacGyvered, and there's no real great way to do it. And so that's what we're trying to solve here at Prompty.
So is this one of those models, James, where someone will have like one card? Like I would have my own card in my own wallet, like a physical card. Then people tap the card, or I tap the card to them, and it kind of shares my information. Is that how that works?
Yes, so you can have the card, you can have your QR code in the app here, where it's a free, you can create your free account. I can click share. Something we have unique is a magnetic button, which I'm actually not wearing right now, and I was planning to. I took it off because my wife and I had a date last night. And I took it off because I'm too focused on this company. And she actually, as we were getting ready for bed, she's like, "You didn't wear it. I'm so proud of you." It's the first time I haven't. And then lo and behold, this morning when I put on my sweater, I'm not wearing it. But it's a magnetic button that we use at, say, convocation. We're doing Athabasca University's convocation. So every convocant gets this magnetic button that's equipped with near field communication. So you would just tap the phone to their magnetic button that they're wearing on their name tag or on their suit, tie, or whatever it is, and then your information is instantly and securely exchanged. So it's only in person. And so we help remove the friction of in-person networking while also streamlining that authentic connection.
Okay, listen, Real Talk, show's called it. We got to go there, and we'll talk to you more about your businesses, and we have more questions. But James, you just touched on something. Date night last night. You were smart enough. There's no question you're a smart fella, but especially smart to remove your button so you could focus exclusively on the love of your life sitting next to you or across the table from you. But you've just acknowledged something that I think most entrepreneurs can relate to, and that is the sacrifices that come with the territory. And if you're not giving yourself at the office or to your business, then maybe you're not achieving the results you want. But if you're not giving yourself or being present with your family or your loved ones or the areas of interest in your life or physical fitness or whatever the case may be, then you start to suffer, and people start to wonder if the trade-off's worth it or not. I want to get personal with the three of you. James, because you made the comment, we'll go right back to you. How do you find that balance, or have you found it to this point?
So it's a great question, and all of us here we're just finished programs. I know Raewyn finished in 2020. I just finished 2 months ago. So the past 3 years, I have two young children. I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old. I started this company. I was working full time beforehand, and then I left that job to start Prompty, which has been I went from an 8-hour day to like a 16-hour day. Or well, when I was doing school, it was 16 hours, but 12 of that was work and six of that was school. And it's about trying to find the time well, it's not about finding the time because you won't find it. You have to make it. You have to be very diligent with that. And so I would be setting aside time, being like, okay, in the mornings, I really want to be uh, spending time with my children in the morning. And then after the daycare, after they've hung out with my wife, then I help with the suppers and the bedtimes. So you have to be very, very diligent with it. Right now, I'm away for 1 week, visiting some family on Vancouver Island. And even that's tough because we have some of our biggest events next month. And so I have a team, but it's taken a while to build this team. And I'm still in this early stage, very involved in a lot of aspects just because we're just starting to get that early stage revenue. So it's about making the time. But I always say what good is success with no one to share it with.
Huh.
And I have this driving passion that drives me, but why does it drive me? It's because I care about my family and because I love them so much that's what I'm recognizing. I'm sacrificing these things now for the future benefit, not just for my family, but also for the world and everyone else that I'm creating this service or this product for, that I'm using my talents to help.
I love that conviction. Bradley, have you been able to find a balance? I mean, relatively early in your career?
I have a little bit, as much as I can. I had a business coach once say to me, when you start your own business, you get the freedom to work like a dog, just to work. And I realized pretty early on that if I wanted to be able to do this really impactful work, I had to protect myself because one, the content is so crazy, really, and uh, so emotionally charged that it's easy to burn out of something like this. In fact, this field, other people in it, people burn out of it. And so I've had to be a little careful about protecting my time and saying, okay, at this hour, I'm shutting it off. We're done for the day.
Easier said than done, though, right? I mean, I just find I don't know about you, Raewyn, but I'll be like literally laying in bed, and all of a sudden I just like sit up because I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot, and it's like a major thing. You haven't responded to an email for like 6 days, and the message it sends to that person. Oh man, it just seems like there's always something. How have you figured it out?
Well, I don't know that I could say that I have figured it out,
Yeah.
but but the reality is, and I think so many people don't recognize it when they get into a business, is that it consumes you all the time, right? And so you do need to ensure that you're doing other things. So, for example, and added to that is, as a dyslexic thinker, my brain's really good in the morning, really early in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, but kind of by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not as good. And so there's also that to deal with. But for me, it's more about stopping and taking time. Like, I love pottering in the garden. That's something that, especially when business is challenging, because at least you can cut a plant back all the way and it's going to grow again, right? If you're tending it and looking after it. So it's kind of motivating. But doing that, spending time with family on the weekends as well, that's something that I think is super important. And it's really just, probably it's more about getting good sleep through the night, and just prioritizing making sure that you're getting sleep, you're stopping, you're pausing occasionally. But it doesn't happen all the time, because you're right, you're very right. There's often times where I'm busy grabbing my phone to jot a note about something, or having a look at something, the latest AI tool that's come out, having a check of that at 4 a.m, on my phone lying in bed, right? So it's a challenge, right? So we all have to kind of figure out what works for us.
Yeah, to say the very least. I appreciate, by the way, you sharing about your neurodivergence. We had actually the last one of the most recent conversations we had directly relating to this was in partnership with Athabasca University. I don't know if the three of you are familiar with Tara Langen, but she has developed this course, Neurodiversity in the Workplace, talking about how workplaces are evolving for Gen Z and the new workforce, and just Fascinating stuff. Real Talkers can check that out as a highlight or as a full episode wherever they get their podcasts or right here on our YouTube channel. That was our March 23rd episode. Really fantastic stuff. Aurora Astra is in our live chat and says, I would really love to hear how your guests are wrapping their mind around this 30% funding cut that we've seen to Alberta Innovates over the past week. I don't know if that impacts any of you directly, but it does open the door to talk about funding, supports, incubator opportunities. What has worked, for the three of you in the sense of getting an idea, from concept to prototype or whatever the case may be through your beta testing and then ready for public consumption. What was big for you, Bradley?
The big thing actually was getting connected. For about the first 2 years, I operated Trouvay in complete isolation. And then I actually got connected to Edmonton Unlimited here in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And I started taking programs. I was in the Velocity program through the Alberta Catalyzer. And just getting connected helped me learn what I didn't know, which is what I needed to move forward. And so I would say the biggest thing for me has been getting connected to those resources that exist, particularly the coaching in the early days. But coming back to Alberta Innovates, we hadn't started accessing funding from them, but we were planning on it this year. And so as we've heard about these cuts, we're interested to see what will we be able to access to help move this forward, to help do this crucial work.
Yeah, James, how important is that to you? Access to counsel, mentorship, capital, etc.
Yeah, it's paramount that you don't want to do this alone, kind of as what Bradley was alluding to. I'm sure it was much more challenging, Bradley, when you were trying to navigate this in isolation. And you can kind of hear how he talked about once he got connected with Edmonton Unlimited, just how opportunities opened in so many ways. So for me, I viewed my MBA sort of as my incubator for Prompty. So it's a different way to look at funding. So maybe these ecosystems, their funding's going down, this sort of thing. But if you invest in yourself through your education, then even if your company fails, you have an advanced degree that you can use to maybe apply to another business or apply in another realm to another thing. And the other thing is being able to apply these lessons that I'm learning in school to an actual company and actual team building, actual leadership, and actual organization and supply chain. And all of this was a great way to learn as well, and also a very different perspective than you get at a startup ecosystem where they're very focused on startup oriented things and very little on the CEO and those larger picture things, right? And so that's kind of where the MBA worked really well for me, especially given my experience as a self-managing musician, as a financial analyst, senior financial analyst for 15 years. So I'm entirely bootstrapped. Prompty's entirely bootstrapped. I own it 100%. I've gotten some grants, nothing through Alberta Innovates, so that doesn't impact me directly, but they say your best funding is revenue from customers. And in tech, that's really challenging. When you're building a technology platform that has a long time before it actually can start to generate revenue. So you'll need to offset in these early stages. This is just advice to, Aurora, who is asking. You'll want to offset your early revenue and make it less based on maybe grants and other things, but find ways to supplement your technology to earn some revenue early on. You can do pre-sales. You can do GoFundMes. With Prompty, we sell the physical products. So even though we're building out our platform and it's going to have subscriptions in the future for extra features, there'll always be a free platform. But we have physical products we're selling in the interim, which are a lower barrier to entry, but we can at least get some initial revenue going from there to help fund us as we're starting to scale. So that's how I've been able to hedge some of that risk and not be so dependent on these grants. And so when I hear news like 30% less funding, it doesn't impact me so much because I know there's customers out there that we're accessing.
This is like classic entrepreneur's optimism right there, James. But you're right. And by the way, we appreciate the insights from all of you, kind of, behind the curtain on what's working for you, what some of your challenges are. In a second, I want to ask each of you what your greatest challenge is. But Raewyn, it is Canadian Innovation Week. Canadian Innovation Week. What does Canada need to do better? It could be the provincial government. It could be, obviously the feds. It could be private or so-called angel investors. What does Canada need to do better to help kickstart and sustain innovation?
Well, I think one of the probably the foundational areas is that if you look at a lot of the research that's been done, even out of Canada and the government, when they do small business research, typically they exclude anyone less than 20 employees. So they're already not really gathering the information they need from that specific from the micro business segment in the first place to understand what their needs is. But a biggest focus that I've always found, even trying to reach out to the different funds, scholarships, etc., through the government across the country, was focused very much on. It's very focused on product orientated, so a physical, tangible product, anything that's export. The main focus is export. It's export. If we've got a product you can send to another country, that's the primary way you can get funding, you can get support. There's very little support available for service type businesses, regardless of the size. So in reality, to get my experience and just research into it, is that to get funding from a lot of those sources that are available, you have to actually be in the position where you don't need it, to be fair. And oftentimes you need to be potentially it's more kind of deep tech, right, or hard tech, as opposed to software. So it's much harder to get funding in that side of things. Saying that, I did have an account manager at IRAP for a couple of years, and looking to provide, when I got to a specific stage, they'd be providing a percentage of the resources for the tech team. But as I, like James, bootstrapping, I found that even just that other percentage that I would have to pay out for Canadian employees, I could find other tech resources globally for a fraction of the cost full time. So for me, that was a real challenge. You have to pick and choose. And if you're bootstrapping, then there's challenges that. But I just want to go back to, again, one of the things that James mentioned about the entrepreneurship thing. And I thought that was fantastic, particularly because I also wrote the business case for for this business when I was doing my doctorate. No, it was in doing my master's, and it was in the entrepreneurship module as well. And so, so then when I went back to do my doctorate, I knew exactly what I was focused on, and that's everything I researched. So I was able to, using your degree, be it master's, bachelor's, etc., using that to help you as your main guide for your business, I think is so important, because you can apply the practical case of what your business is going to be to everything. Because most of the time, like I'm also associate lecturer for some university programs here in the UK, and all the time with the apprenticeship degrees, they have to apply to the context, to their workplace. And so that, like James, I love you raising that, because it's, if every potential entrepreneur, if you have an idea about what you want to be doing, and then you're focused on researching, and then every module, apply it to that. Don't apply it to maybe what you're doing then. Apply it to that business that you want to be doing, and you'll be a lot stronger when you come out. Can I keep talking? Because I can
You
talk
sure
forever.
can. This is great.
Okay, so thank you. So when you talked about kind of things like incubators and stuff, so I've been in two, and they're fantastic. So the first one was North Forge, that out of Winnipeg, and that was fantastic. I was doing that one remotely, and they were brilliant, because again, one of the biggest things, even though we might have a business idea, we all have to know you're going to have to pivot, right? You're going to have to pivot at some point. The more research we do, the more we talk to potential customers, users, we need to really understand, we learn more as we do it. And just because there's a need doesn't mean people are willing to pay for it, right? And so North Forge was fantastic. And then also, I just finished in the fall, I was in the cohort 4 of AI Forge. Interesting, this Forge thing going on, but AI Forge out of London. And that was a bit like the Dragon's Den meets, what's the other one? The Apprentice. And so that was grueling 12 weeks, but it was just absolutely tremendous. And from both of these programs, I've pivoted, and you just learn so much more. But the depth of information and that support, even talking about networking, right, and getting those connections, right, like with Prompty, that's probably been also more valuable as well, because you've got other people working with you. So, you're not like Bradley where you're kind of all by yourself all the time, because, that's, I find that's pretty soul destroying. I love and need to work with other people. So sorry, I'll stop talking now.
No, you don't have to stop talking. But Bradley, is that accurate? Was soul destroying? Is just like very powerful and effective words to combine together? Was it soul destroying? And if so, how did you overcome that challenge?
The first 2 years, a little bit. I was like, I've got this incredible thing. I'm helping people, but not helping people in the volume that I want to. And also, there was so much pivoting that needed to come, but it was really hard to stay motivated. But the moment that I got connected, it was like I went from jumping up and down on the ground to landing on a trampoline and jumping there. And so connection has just been so critical to everything for me, even getting connected to the right people to help me gain the perspective that I don't have. There's so much you realize you don't know. As Dr. Sleeman commented on earlier, there's just so much you don't know as an entrepreneur when you're running everything, especially in the early days. And so that perspective is just critical.
You've touched on something really important and reminding everybody, we're talking to Bradley Pierson right now. He's the founder of Trouvay, which is a DNA genealogy firm. So you say, we're helping people, but we want to help way more people. Maybe not everybody is working in DNA genealogy studies, but I think every small business owner or entrepreneur can understand the challenges around scaling up. Right. And so maybe all three of you, I'd love to ask, how are you addressing that challenge? And ultimately, how have you seen success in scaling? And we'll stick with you, Bradley.
Yeah, so the big thing for us has been going where there's traction. We're completely bootstrapped. Because we're working with such sensitive data information, we've wanted to make sure that we can protect that as much as we can. And so we've chosen bootstrapping to go forward. And at first, we were helping people exclusively find their birth parents, and that was what we did. And then we started to see traction with the police, and so we started pivoting more to there. And then where we've actually seen the most traction is collaborating with Indigenous communities to help them access this to find their missing. It's the Indigenous communities that we have worked with are just ready to access this, to understand their heritage, to contribute their DNA to help find the missing. And so we've really taken a pivoting approach to follow where the traction leads and trying to just move our business forward in a good way.
Bradley, the minute you started talking on this show, by the way, I think it was Sharon, one of our community members in our live chat, noted what a valuable resource you could provide as part of as Canada attempts to do right to these thousands of families that have been impacted by this tragedy, this national tragedy. And I'm grateful that you brought it up. Just in follow up, when you're working with police departments or when you're working with First Nations communities or what have you, what is it that Trouvay provides or is able to do that, for example, a police department would be unable to do? Is it just the depth of your DNA resources, or what is it specifically?
Yeah, basically, we're providing a service that requires such deep expertise that most law enforcement agencies have not acquired that expertise within house. And so, like, to give you an estimate on the number of people in Canada who know how to do this, I'd say there's about 10 to 15 of us.
Oh, wow.
So a really small pool of expertise in the country. And so it's just not in-house with law enforcement yet. And when it comes to the Indigenous communities accessing this to try to find the missing, eventually, with some communities, bring home residential school victims, there's just not enough talent that knows how to do this. And so that's kind of where we're helping right now, is trying to train up the next generation of practitioners and make it accessible across the country.
James, how are you scaling? How are you kind of getting over that hurdle?
Yeah, great questions. I also wanted to add to what Bradley was saying earlier about how much you don't know as entrepreneurs. So your most expensive mistakes you make are the ones you don't know you're making. So that just lends to why you need to learn fast. And the other aspect is to fall in love with the problem, not the solution. That's kind of what Bradley's saying, where he's pivoting because he's seen what the problem is and trying to gravitate towards that. If you fall in love with the solution, Bradley would have stopped right at the birth families and just said, like, this is our solution, this is what we're focusing on. But depending on what people need, what people are willing to pay for, etc., he couldn't sustain his business necessarily in that realm. And so you got to fall in love with what the problem is. that people are having. And so at Prompty, we're that's what we're falling in love with is the problem. And actually a common problem with entrepreneurship in itself is scaling too quickly. So it's a great question about how we're scaling. We're actively not at this stage. And it's important to be aware of that. Like if you want to build something really big, like if you want to build something like Amazon or something like life-changing, huge company, you really need to build wide, because if you start growing too quickly, and you don't have the strong foundations, you don't have the good corporate culture, that understanding of what you need. And so you also don't have that right understanding of the problem. And so Prompty, we've been around for 2 years now. We had our first minimum viable product was an event, Métis Youth Summit in 2023. And it was a huge hit there. And we didn't just say, all right, great, we're opening this up to the world. No, we really honed in on what worked well and what didn't at this event. Started working one-on-one with event coordinators to better understand their needs, integrating this platform into that, and started to get a lot of feedback from users. And when we work with an event where we have maybe 100 people there, we get 100 different experiences, 100 different devices, 100 different interactions that we can draw data from and learn from and improve the product. So we're building a really wide foundation before we start to scale. Now we're starting to see that technology, you start to see that little hockey stick where you're like pretty flat initially,
Yeah.
but then your scalable model starts to take off. So we're at the very initial stages of that where it's starting to grow. Where June, our monthly revenue is potentially exceeding our monthly burn rate. So what we're spending per month is going to be exceeded in the month of June. And so we're going to see, okay, can we sustain this? How does this month work? And are we ready to start advertising, for example? Because we haven't done any ads. It's just in-person networking. So that's my thought. Don't scale too quickly. Make sure that you're building something sustainable, something that you can sustain both for your own mental health, but also for your team and what you're building. That's one of the leading causes of failure in businesses and in
kidding.
startups, where they take on too much too fast.
James, when you're ready to start advertising, we know a guy. You just let us know. I want to ask all three of you, and I'll remind our audience that all three of our panelists, all three of our innovators and our founders today are members of the Athabasca University community. And I want to talk to you, Raewyn, we'll start with you about higher, institutions of higher learning and post-secondary institutions like AU and others across the country and around the world, what supports they can provide, and maybe some of the challenges and if they exist, advantages of being a student while starting a company. Raewyn, what's your personal experience been there?
So I think with the alumni, because obviously there's a lot of alumni events that happen, and that's a fantastic way for the networking, right? So kind of in James side of things, but the networking via that is because it's about connections, right? And finding people who might be able to help you, be it coaching you, be it mentoring you, that maybe is in a different space where they've gone through what you're about to go through or you're going through. And so that's where alumni network, because there's going to be so many different people with different skills and abilities that you can tap into. And of course, as alumni events, I know even just Bradley and James and I chatting before we came on was like, I'm really looking forward to talking to them again afterwards, right? Because it's it's great making those connections, but we're all from Athabasca, right? So that makes a big difference to us. But particularly for people learning, as we were talking about a bit earlier, is that when you're starting to learn, if you're going to be learning, going to do the education, it is better if your focus primarily is to start a specific business. Is as I said, is ensure that you apply the context of that business to everything you're learning, because then you'll learn as you grow with that. But additionally, getting mentors, I think, is super important. But more importantly, probably, is if you're going to do any university or any type of training, is seek out any support that's available. That's really how I got where I am. I didn't even finish high school because when it was found out that I was a dyslexic thinker, I was put back quite a few years. And of course, my friends were all graduating, and the last thing I wanted to do was to not graduate, thinking I know enough, I know it all. And so I quit out. But thankfully, when I was in New Zealand, because my father's a Kiwi, they had a second chance program, and as long as you didn't fail, you could come in. And so because then I knew I was able to get the support I needed. But literally after every lecture, I'd run to the support pods, the support tutors, and say, okay, help me figure this out. And so there's so much support available with every university, that's not even just, with the alumni network, that's just, use it. That's what it's there for. And it's going to help you make sense of it and make a better business of it and along the way.
That's incredible about your high school experience and your experience going through life and the challenges dyslexia would present. Do you see yourself as a bit of a, I don't know, like a torchbearer, like a mentor? Do people in that context?
I don't, because to be honest, I actually hid it my entire career.
Wow.
I didn't really tell anyone about it.
So it's kind of a big thing for you to be talking about it in this interview.
It is. And it was only actually when I was in North Forge and one of my mentors, brilliant man, Rodrigo, when he was in a chat and he was really kind of pushing me saying, why you, why this? And I got a bit teary and I said, I understand what it's like not to know something or not to understand something. Because every time I'd meet with micro business owners and I'd ask them a question about marketing their business, and I would see these blank faces because they just didn't know, right? And so for me, probably the biggest trailblazing thing I think I can is to let micro business owners know you're not supposed to know how to market your business, right? And you're not supposed to know how to do all these other things of your business. It's okay. That's normal. It's not like there's something wrong with you, because the biggest reason why micro businesses fail is because they copy someone else, because they think, well, everyone else looks like, we're all pretending that we know what we're doing. And so they think, well, they must know what they're doing, so I'm just going to copy what they're doing. But it's literally the blind leading the blind. 9 out of 10 micro businesses fail within, 5-6 years. And this statistic is consistent. It doesn't matter if since the internet came. Sorry, I'm going to start preaching again. I better stop.
Preach.
But even with the internet, it's like there's so much more information. There's so many courses. There's so many tools. There's so many apps that we can use. But the failure rate is staying consistent, and sometimes it's even increasing, because the more complexity, the more the choices people have. And if you're not sure what to be doing in the first place, how do you decide which one's the right one to use? All of this assumption, and particularly in the marketing industry that's so broken, is there's an assumption that you know what you need, or you know what the right answer is, right? You go to an ad agency or a freelancer or anyone, a boutique, and they say, what do you want? What do you need, right? Maybe you say, okay, I think I need a website. Then they prepare it and then they give it to you and go, okay, what do you think? Well, how do you know what to think? You're not a marketing expert. How do you know if the website, and that's when, a lot of designers, and drives me mad, where graphic designers are like, oh, they just want the logo bigger. It's like, well, because they don't understand. They don't know the impact of space and layouts and colors and compositions and contrast. So that to me is probably, I'd much prefer to be known as the person who helped people, every business owner, realize it's okay not to know how to run your business or to market your business. And it's more than okay to actually find support and look and try and see if you can find someone that actually is going to be, unbiased and genuinely give you the advice you need. And that's, to be honest, that's why I created the marketing strategy app.
Amazing. Bradley, again, the talk about starting a business as a student, advantages, disadvantages, and supports of the post-secondary ecosystem.
Yeah, I actually think that starting a business in university provides safety. I started it, like I was taking a business degree at Athabasca, and I was like, I want to start this business. And you know what? I'm gonna do it, because if I fail, it's whatever. I'm gonna take this as my self-made practicum. That's what I called it. And so I was like, I had nothing to lose. And the other thing that I think universities provide or can provide are a platform. As they hear about these businesses and as the businesses get connected to the university in the way that mine did kind of near the end of my time at Athabasca, I think they can provide a platform to showcase the good that's happening. And that platform is instrumental to getting it out there. James,
last word to you. I talk a lot, actually, when obviously we have this partnership with Athabasca University, and I've always just been so impressed with the offerings there and how accessible it all is. And one of the programs I focus on consistently is the MBA, because I think that there are so many people out there that would love to pursue that goal, the one that you did, but probably perceive there to be barriers, or there are very real barriers that stand in the way of them pursuing that. And one of them could be starting up or managing a small business. So how did you manage both at the same time?
Yeah, so I created the business while I was doing my MBA. I'd already started my MBA, And it was the idea that came to me during my first year. So actually, my first business I started during my MBA was an Airbnb in my basement. And here's the business idea for those interested. It's called the Retro Rumpus, and so it was sort of like your grandma's sort of, but nice. And we renovated the back, like the bedroom and that area, and we had a secret passageway, like a secret door back at the bar. So that's how you get to your new area. And the concept was like a locked room, but instead of trying to escape the room or get out of the locked room, you're actually trying to get into your Airbnb. And so we kind of started building it out, and we just had it as an Airbnb because I was so busy with school and with the babies. And we did well with that. And a movie I actually wanted to film in there. And it was just a great experience. I incorporated it because I wanted all this to apply my business learnings. But then the idea for Prompty came while I was doing this. And the idea for Prompty is more scalable, and it wasn't in our house, which my wife was more of a fan of. So that's why I started to explore the Prompty avenue. And it fit well in line with what I was doing for school anyways, because a lot of the school you have to do your assignments, you have to do weekly discussions between 6 to 8 discussion posts. And so instead of doing it on where I was working previously, Alberta Health Services, and I remember doing my HR human resource project, and I don't know where it went. I was so proud of it. I've sent it to my manager. I don't know what happened with it. It's just a big bureaucracy, such a hierarchy of people. You don't see any change. Because I'm creating a small business, every project, every discussion, I'm able to implement those learnings right away into the business. So it made a lot of sense. It was very efficient with my time, as well as Bradley was saying. It provided some security, some safety. Even if I fail, at least I have an MBA here.
Huh.
And it was great. I was able to apply all the learnings. And you think of, if you're doing nursing or maybe medical school, you have labs that you go and you actually practice on maybe real patients. That's exactly what it is. If you're starting a business while doing an MBA, it's just putting your learning into practice in a real live scenario to see if what you're learning is taking root and if you can apply it. And if you can't, then you're in the place to learn and grow, ask questions to your professor, ask questions to your peers, etc. So it's a great place. That's why I kind of viewed it as my little incubator.
I love it. And by the way, I also love how all three of you smile while you talk about what you're doing. Not everybody smiles when they're talking about their work. And it's obviously a passion for all three of you. And we're grateful that you've been able to make some time, to carve out some time from your busy schedules to talk to us about Canadian Innovation Week. We've been talking to James McInnes of Prompty, to Bradley Pierson of Trouvay, and to Dr. Raewyn Sleeman of Stratagease. Thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today, and we wish you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful talking with you, Ryan.
No, we love it. Thanks a lot, guys, to all three of you. Dr. Raewyn, yeah, look at that. That was one of those Zoom backgrounds that just very nicely done, very nicely executed.
Okay.
The art on the walls, everybody talking about the art on the walls. I love that. That's one of the reasons why you got to watch the show. You can watch the show on YouTube. You can also watch us, by the way, on LinkedIn. Shout out to those of you that do that. Had lunch with a guy yesterday. Says he exclusively watches Real Talk in the mornings on LinkedIn. I said, you and a whole bunch of others. You can find us on X and Facebook, all courtesy of our friends at California Closets. Some great chat in the live chat as well. And I'll note that we didn't get around to all of your comments, but I did see there was kind of a good exchange going back and forth with some of our YouTube channel members and other contributors talking about the impact that AI is going to have in automation on the workforce. And I think it was Tracy I saw in there that said there's a major disruption coming over the next few years when it comes to AI and innovation. I would agree. I think that's undeniable, and we've talked about that on the show before. But remember, and somebody said this to me once, it won't hold true in every industry, and it won't hold true in every job. But somebody said there's a very good chance that AI will not take your job, but somebody that understands how to leverage AI could take your job. And I think that was kind of a
Sure,
good
yeah.
insight on that as well. Like you hear more and more people talking about AI is basically applying to any industry and any workforce. People are using it in different ways for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
Like you and I don't think that people really realize that once the show is off the ground and we're rolling, you and I just kind of like hand it over to AI and put our feet up for like 90 minutes. And it's the most relaxing experience we could possibly have, right?
Well, no, not so many words, but yeah, AI, and it's crazy to think like what installations are being used with AI that we haven't seen yet. Because there's always like most of the things we have were developed by, and this is why this is a good point for Canada's upping its military spending. They're developed for the military. Like literally your iPhone, your GPS, your maps, cell phone technology. This was all developed for the military first and then given to the public eventually, right? So I assume that there are levels of AI and once supercomputing and all this crazy stuff starts merging with AI. The CEO of Google was just blowing my mind. The former CEO of Google, rather, talking about supercomputers and AI and just the levels of AI that we can't even comprehend right now. And it's scary, but at the same time, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. And we've talked about this on the show. Like, if you don't get educated on AI, learn how to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be a servant to it eventually, right? So.
Aurora Astra follows up. By the way, thanks for your question, Aurora, on Alberta Innovates funding. Says, I'm an engineer. The AI machines will spare us in the revolutionary takeover. I'll take your word for it.
Servant was the wrong word to use there.
You know
but I just meant like we all need to get on board, right?
Yeah, I saw a video the other day. I was at, what's that? Is it Boston Robotics? What's that company that does like the really amazing? Yeah, Boston Dynamics. It's like a robotics company, and they were showing a demonstration they had, and it was two robots. It was in a soccer context. And the one robot was like kicking a penalty kick against the goalie. The other one,
cool.
But the robot like got pointed in the wrong direction and like missed the ball and then fell over. And I was like, thank God. I just need to see stuff like that every once in a while because I think the robots are taking over everything else. Yeah. No offense to some of the smartest people on planet Earth. Brain and heart surgeons and the rest, but you even see, and often they're obviously controlling a lot of the robotics. But if you want to see something to really blow your mind, you go to, for example, like the Royal Alexandra, the University Hospital, or some of the leading medical centers across the country, and see how robotics are being integrated into surgery, and it is wild. Mm-hmm. Absolutely wild. Others of you are saying, yeah, Justin says there was a Nobel Prize winner in computing that said that a general AI is closer than people think, and our systems and institutions and laws are not prepared for it at all. Justin, I think that's an insightful comment. That's a recurring question in I think good journalists should be asking it, and members of the public as well, is how fast can government keep up, or how well and effectively can government keep up with legislation to address the rapid advancement of technology. Mm-hmm. And you even see it. It's maybe not a perfect example, but you even see what the Trudeau Liberals were doing with Meta and getting in the big fights with the big social media platforms. That's maybe one example, but you look at how Canada has differed from the U.S., has differed from the EU, and the implications that that's had. One example, maybe not the best one, but just one. JJ says AI may take some jobs, sure, but it will also improve the jobs that most people do and will continue to do. JJ, I think that's a great comment as well. So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about AI before and how it's being integrated. I don't know that like the majority of people, I'm talking 51% of people, I don't know if the majority of people are using AI daily, but I know people personally, and I guarantee our audience does as well, that it is integral to the operation of their business. And AI and machine learning for a lot of people has been that way for years.
I think we're all indirectly using it too as well. I mean, you go to social media, AI is driving. I mean, I think you're using a lot of things, that are either driven or being supported by AI every day that you don't necessarily even assume.
Yeah. Scott says, I will never be a servant to AI. Says that's not how it works. I agree. He says AI is a tool to help you get better at your profession. The better you are at your job, or the better you are at your profession, the better you'll deliver on your job, which is 100% true.
Well, I tell you, if AI makes my life easier and me better at my job and me a better person and have more sleep and less stress, I'll serve it every day. Give me the oil can, lift your arm, AI robot.
I want to see this.
I love you.
I'm just looking here because is it Wise Kyle says you can get a Boston Dynamic dog. I'm showing it on my screen right now. Is this it? Spot, the agile robot that climbs stairs and traverses rough terrain with ease. Mm-hmm. A robot dog. What's the point? I guess you don't have to pick up after it. That would be a nice one, but there's not going to be any dog hair on your clothing. That's about where it would end for me. It's about where it would end.
But like this thing right here, this was probably a military installation at one time.
Well,
right?
Kenzie
probably
says
for bombs or whatever.
Kenzie
going
says
into
that
caves.
they've seen robotic dogs used for policing, some with machine guns mounted on them. Okay, this is where I start to shit my pants. When we start talking about robot dogs with machine guns mounted on them, I don't need that. You want to and I don't
Unless
want
it's your dog.
Make light of international conflict at all. But you see some of these videos of how drones are being used now for, I mean, you might say on the lower scale for risky search operations, they need to go into a property and go in and see if somebody's in that property, and these drones will kind of fly in.
Yeah, it's been happening for a while.
But in other cases, like armed drones dropping bombs, you look at, I mean, that's in a big way. I mean, it's fascinating how Ukraine has been able to effectively fight the Russians, and drones have been like a huge part of that. But drone warfare moving forward, I don't know about other people, that really gives me the heebie-jeebies, especially people that, bad actors, right? Not just talking about like nation states, and some nation states are bad actors, but I'm talking about like private individuals. I didn't think that we would talk terrorism today, but you think of like terrorism implications of drones, right? People don't have jammers downtown. You could fly a drone right into a downtown core and do whatever you wanted, really. Like, what's going to stop somebody from dropping nerve gas with a drone today somewhere in Canada? I know, just a nice thought for the weekend, everybody. Just as Johnny's like closing his eyes right now, burying his head in his hands. But do you actually think about stuff like this? And I know drones aren't AI, but we're just talking about tech and how tech is transforming things. That kind of stuff freaks me out. Nothing to add. Now that I've left everybody with the just something to think about for the weekend. The next time you see a drone circling over top,
we had like in the Moss Pit, for example, during the playoff games right now. Like, you can't fly drones, but everyone tries, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how security, RCMP, police, Edmonton Police Service, I don't know how they do it, but they've caught a bunch of people. And it's most likely from their drones following the drone, seeing where it lands.
Interesting.
And seeing who picks it up. And we've caught one person actually in the Moss Pit. It was ridiculous because we're just watching.
Yeah.
Like, we've all got our phones out. We're all watching this drone because we've got a larger Sportsnet drone. That's the concern, that it's going to crash into the more expensive one, which is broadcasting out to across the nation.
Yeah.
And so we watched him land this, and they got him. But I guess the only tactic against drone warfare is other drones, and that just gets even scarier. And then it's attacking the drones.
Yeah, right? I see some of you in the chat that are suggesting that I'm giving the terrorists ideas. Number one, if you haven't come up with that idea yourself, what kind of a terrorist are you really? I would just leave it at that. This is a conversation that Johnny right now is just waiting for the emails we're going to get on this. But I'll just say, real talk, real life, this is just the way that it goes. We got to be thinking about these things. We got to be thinking about security threats.
Well,
we want to be talking about AI and
already
technology.
About this.
Yeah,
I'm
you
sure
think that people haven't been thinking about this 15 years ago, right? You let us know what you think to talk at RyanJespersen.com. Some of you are pointing out the practical or the impractical nature of my suggestions. Vamp Fashion says there's not a lot of places to buy nerve gas in Canada, but you can get a drone. But where do they get the stuff? That's the scary part. Aaron pointing out Neil Postman says if you get a chance, read his work. Very interesting. Neil Postman was like how would I describe him? Neil Postman was like, through the course of my undergrad in communications, one of the most brilliant thinkers, I think, in the history of humanity, Aaron, and you're bang on. If anybody's unfamiliar with his work, make sure you give it a read. We want to get to, by the way, the first question in the House of Commons, answered by Canada's Prime Minister, asked by the interim Conservative Party leader, Andrew Scheer. Kind of an interesting one as the ball gets rolling there. And, of course, we do have an episode of the Flamethrower as well, including something from Seventh Pilot, who says he guarantees I wasn't going to check something out. Seventh Pilot guarantees I wasn't going to see a video. I'm going to show you a video, John. I would go so far as to guarantee you have not yet seen it. I'm quite certain it is an AI music video about Alberta's separation. It's unlike anything else I've ever seen. Have you ever seen a drum kit on an oil derrick before? I don't think so. On a drill rig? No, I don't think so. But you're gonna see it. You're gonna see it in just a quick second. First, I want to remind you that today's episode has been produced in partnership with our friends at Athabasca University. How cool is it to hear from those three on our roundtable, just doing amazing work in their areas of, not just their areas of study, but their areas of expertise now as innovators. Athabasca University offers hundreds of world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. That's the best part about it, and that's why they've got more than 50,000 alumni from all around the world, folks that have found a way to design and carry out a career path, a post-secondary path that works with their schedule, with their realities. It's what sets AU apart from any other post-secondary institution in Canada. You can apply today, learn more about student supports and more at athabascau.ca. It is a perfect weekend for barbecuing. Shout out to everybody that's going to be getting their gardens in this weekend, that's going to be maybe hosting some friends for a nice rack of ribs or maybe just the classic juicy beef burger. Friesen Brothers has you covered with their Friesen Brothers Butchers. That's right, they are sustaining that craft, the art of butchery. That's their roots, as a matter of fact, 70 years ago when Frank Loveson opened up the first ever Friesen Brothers, a butcher shop in Hinton, Alberta. They've grown it to an institution in the 70 years since, still family owned in 16 different Alberta communities. Friesen Brothers is Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Also a fantastic weekend for golf. May I recommend Alberta's top public course at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. It is 20 minutes from Edmonton's downtown core, just a few minutes from the West End, 18 holes of pure bliss, a party atmosphere. Of course, they cut no corners on the actual course itself, and their hospitality second to none. You can check out the course, tour the 18 holes by visiting theranchgolf.com. That's also where you can book your tee time and learn more about golf tournaments. That's where the Real Talk Golf Classic is going to be on the 19th of June. That's the sold-out Real Talk Golf Classic. Thanks to everybody that'll be attending in support of the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship. It's all happening at The Ranch. Check him out today at theranchgolf.com. And I was loving hearing from the Real Talkers that were able to attend UCAN 101 less than 24 hours ago. Our friends at UCAN Youth Services, about once a month, they open up their doors at UCAN HQ for tours. They provide a lunch, and you can meet some of the young people who are seeing their lives transform based on their own initiative, opportunity in front of them, and then they answer the bell. It's an inspiring story after inspiring story. You can learn more about what UCAN is doing, including their relentless outreach program, by checking out their website. Maybe consider a donation today. Change a life at ucan.ca.
Oh, I was just watching drone light shows. I was watching drones delivering groceries. I was trying to convince myself the drones are on our side during that break there.
Drones, and one of the things, and this is a Neil Postman thing, and there's others that have commented on this as well, is that technology is not inherently good nor bad. The technology is not good or bad. It is the application of the technology that is good or bad, right?
I would love if they had a haircut drone that just kind of gave you a haircut at home.
Your thing. Can I give a little bit of a peek? I've never met anybody like you. You get your haircut like every 4 days.
No,
you do. I've never met
like my wife.
I've never met somebody that gets their haircut so frequently, and I respect it. I respect how frequently you like to keep it. Like Snoop Dogg says, you got to keep it neat.
Get out of my business.
Keep
Ryan
it neat.
Jespersen.
I am just I'm minding my own business. All I'm saying is that with the Oilers, literally 12-2 since you dyed your hair, you do whatever you need to do. Keep it high and tight, and you do whatever you need to do.
It used to be once a month, but now, I don't know. I've never dyed my hair before, but now I will never financially recover from this.
You've literally this is the first time you dyed your hair?
Well,
you had frosted
when I was
tips
younger,
back in the day.
you dye your hair or whatever. You do it at home with a box. This was I went to a professional. But so it's every other week I get it cut. But every week in between, I just get the fade because my hair grows so fast it looks ridiculous.
Well, and there's nothing like when a fade starts to come in, starts to grow in. It's like everybody just.
I don't want people to think I'm some I have to get my hair cut all the time, but I'm just trying.
High maintenance. You want people to think you're high maintenance?
I'm not high maintenance, but
you're the opposite of high maintenance.
I'm kind of buying into this thing as the weeks go on, and you've been pushing it too. I got to keep the hair dyed blonde. I got to keep it looking good because something is happening, and everyone's doing this around the city. We should do a show on just people should send in what they've been doing. I know guys I saw last night at the game who are like, dude, I've wore the same underwear for the last 2 rounds. Not that they haven't washed it, but to every game they attend, they're wearing the same jersey, the same pants, the same shoes, the same socks, the same underwear. People are insane right now.
Yeah, the same underwear thing.
He clearly clean them, he said. But because I was like,
well,
what
no,
do
but
you
then
mean?
what's the
Like,
point? Then what's the point? If you're washing them, what's the point?
I don't know.
The point is
I
you
guess
don't
it's
wash
just
them.
the thing where, and of course, we can shout her out. Lauren Hunter, local
course.
radio personality.
We love her.
She dressed in the first game in this huge hockey skate that she literally built herself. And I've seen pictures of her like eating food, laying in bed with it now. Because can you imagine, Ryan? She's got to wear this thing every freaking game now, and it's like it's quite an ordeal.
Yeah, Lauren, by the way, pointing out that drone fireworks shows are absolutely incredible. There's nothing like a drone fireworks show.
Yeah,
and
I didn't know whether to say fireworks show because there's not actually.
Well, I think
but
it's
show,
kind of like
but,
it's like the new era of fireworks shows, and a lot of people are saying like it's better for wildlife, it's better for the environment.
I love it.
Way better for like. I know a lot of people. We have like one of our dogs is she's brave as hell, but she's very skittish around things like fireworks.
They don't
and
like
thunderstorms.
those.
They don't like the loud noises. Part of me, and this is such a selfish, like human prick thing to say.
I knew it.
Well, just part of the beauty of the fireworks show is the boom, right? Like, isn't that kind of part of the best part? Animal Kingdom be damned.
Yes,
isn't that kind of the best part?
And farmers chime in on here, but I assume they've had their run-ins with I don't know, cows' heads stuck in fences because some of them they just freak out and run. And it's always at night when it's dark, right? So it's just, I love the drone shows. They're so much more intricate.
They're very cool
than actual fireworks. Like it's amazing what they can do. It's absolutely incredible.
Very cool stuff.
It's
Mark Carney, the house is in session, so
Andrew Shear.
yeah, okay, let's play the clip and then we'll talk about Andrew Shear. But I just so here it is. Here's the exchange. Andrew Scheer, the interim leader of the Conservatives. Pierre Poilievre can't be in there until he wins a seat. He'll do that in Battle River Crowfoot. But for right now, the former leader of the Conservatives, Andrew Scheer, asking the questions. And he tosses the very first one to Mark Carney as Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to his first official question period. This is where democracy lives, and this is where we provide rigorous scrutiny on every word he says and every dollar he spends on behalf of Canadians. Now, let's talk about those words and dollars. During the election campaign, it was elbows up as he put retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Then secretly, he dropped those tariffs to effectively zero. But he didn't stop there. He told Canadians that the government would collect $20 billion in revenue from those tariffs and use it to cost his platform. Now that those tariffs are going to bring in $0, two quick questions. Why wasn't he honest with Canadians during the election? And how is he going to make up the shortfall? Is he going to borrow it, print it, or tax it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, may I first thank my constituents from Nepean for giving me the honour of being here. And could you also indulge me to say how great it is to see you in the Speaker's chair, and I trust that you're operating under the period of grace that will not be accorded to me. Appropriately, as the Leader of the Opposition just said. Mr. Speaker, our tariffs have maximum impact on the United States, minimum impact on Canada, and we are dedicating all the revenues from those tariffs to supporting the workers and businesses affected by the unjustified American actions. Hear, hear.
Okay, so there you have it. There's the first big exchange, which is kind of blah blah, nothing super crazy, but the ball is rolling.
Yeah, but you know what I like about this? People seem a little calmer. People and that's what I want to see, because let's discuss the issues, but a little calmer. I don't mind argument, debate, and yes, people get fired up sometimes, but why I said Andrew Scheer before we started it, he's so much more... I don't want to say delightful to deal with.
Delightful.
But he comes in so smooth, right? With the hey, this is what we do here, blah, 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 blah. But he's smiling while he says it. Then the speaker comes in, the Speaker of the House says, time, as Carney's about to say, if you'll indulge me, he says time in the background. It's just there seems to be an air, and I'm not saying everything's all gravy, the world's fixed, Canada's okay because we had an election and Liberals won. I'm just saying there's a little more decorum. There's a little more okay, here's a little joke, but now let's get down to fixing things. And it just seems like everyone on all sides, even the speaker, everyone seems to just have a better attitude, and they all want to fix things, and they all want to work together, which is great for Canadians.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, I just thought it was, I wouldn't, and I know that you're not suggesting that this is going to last forever, but
No,
I wouldn't get my hopes up that
This
they're
is
all
a
going to
first
be
date
joking
thing. It's a
around
first
and
date
happy
thing.
with each other.
It's a
But
first
you're right. Yeah, I also thought it was kind of like, I don't know. I'm going to take a bit of a different tone because I've on this show said before that I love we describe it as like the thrust and parry of the House of Commons. I like the theatrics. I don't like when politics gets down into the gutter. I don't like when politicians, either promote or perpetuate or hint at or toy with misinformation and disinformation. Mm-hmm. I don't like when politicians straight up lie to their colleagues or to members of the public. But I do like the gamesmanship of it all.
Sure.
And I think that maybe that's one of the reasons why Pierre Poilievre, and like it's a tale of two realities with Pierre Poilievre. Like, number one, he lost the election. He blew a huge lead and he lost the election. But at the same time, they got more votes than they've had in a long time. They gained 20 seats. They've got all this momentum. They've won in a recount. They took another seat back. So like there are positives. And one of the reasons why I think Pierre Poilievre has resonated with conservative supporters, in particular new ones, is that he's way more of a prick than Andrew Scheer. The part where I find Andrew Scheer, and like I've got no axe to grind with Andrew Scheer. I've got no problem with Andrew Scheer.
But he's not
like,
tough enough.
He's like howdy doody.
Yeah.
Trying to be
Totally.
Judge Dredd.
Totally.
Like, you know what I mean? He's like this like nice kind of cherub-faced guy.
He looks way too excited to be back in the high chair,
Well, because they're trusting him again.
He's
and like
jacked up about it.
Right? And so, good for him. And I'm sure he serves his constituents
Way to
proudly.
go,
And
buddy.
way to go. But when he tries to be like an asshole, he can't do it.
It's true. And so this is what I'm saying. Why can't the Conservatives find someone in the middle? Someone who's got that hard line edge like Pierre Poilievre, but can also have politeness and joke around like Andrew Scheer. It seems we're always on the far two sides of it. But I totally agree with you that like just the way he comes off. He's so excited to be back in the high chair. He's so like
calling it the high chair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
You know what I mean?
Kenzie's 100% correct. Says Andrew Scheer always looks like he's smiling even when he isn't. Mm-hmm. And we all know someone like that in our lives that like when they're mad, you're like, why are you smiling? It's like they're not smiling. It looks like they're smiling, and he's always got the flushed cheeks. I don't know.
It's a little scary at the same time. Like, what's going on behind the eyes there?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, what is going on anyway? Let us know what you think about this to talk at RyanJespersen.com. Starting Monday, our next episode, obviously, we're diving right back into the deep end with politics and political developments. And I do want to invite you to tune in this weekend on Saturday on CBC Politics Radio to The House with Catherine Cullen. They've been kind enough to invite us on a couple of days after I was on with Ian Hannamansing, which is great. Love to see that partnership continue to roll and gain traction as more and more Canadians are paying attention to the upcoming First Ministers meeting. This will be the Prime Minister, obviously talking to all the premiers and trying to make some headway on his promise. They say they're going to table legislation for free trade in Canada by Canada Day. In other words, they're going to have a plan. They're going to have a plan in front of Parliament and essentially in front of Canadians by July 1st on what they're going to do to eliminate interprovincial trade barriers. And you could suggest, I think, that the stakes have never been higher in this relationship with Ottawa and Alberta because of a couple of reasons. Number one, Danielle Smith's essentially ultimatum to the federal government. I think it was 9 items. She said she wants to see progress on, or the Prime Minister, not her, the Prime Minister will trigger a national unity crisis. So there's that. And then there's the separation movement in Alberta, which we've touched on, obviously, from time to time in varying different ways and contexts. Of course, everybody knows that if this First Ministers meeting results in some sort of plan, some sort of partnership, if Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and Prime Minister Mark Carney can come out of these meetings and say we've made meaningful progress on this, or we're talking more about this, whether that's energy expansion or whatever else, then will that quiet the voices? Or is that horse already left the barn? That's where we're going to lead off in this next segment, which is proudly presented weekly by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. This is a chance for you to send us your absolute hottest takes. That's right, we warm it up every single Friday for real talkers who are looking to bring the heat. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. And how about this one from 7th Pilot, who has shared this music video with us. Johnny, you can go ahead and show my screen. Check this out. This is the Freedom Train that's rolling through Alberta. This is a musician by the name of Jason Corsi, and the song is called Sovereign Steel. And this is obviously an AI-generated music video. We would play it for you, except for that would trigger the copyright, and then it would shut down our episode. And so unfortunately, we'll just show it to you. For those of you listening on the podcast, this is a rock and roll cowboy rig hand type landscape, pickup trucks and grain fields, and a big celebration of what it is that sets Alberta apart from the rest of Canada. They portray Mark Carney as the king who must be dethroned, the crown to be ground into the soil, that fertile Alberta soil that for more than 100 years has driven agriculture and the energy economy. This is a music video that calls for Alberta to be its own sovereign state. 7th Pilot said, I guarantee you won't show it on Real Talk. Number 1, 7th Pilot, here you are, and thanks for sharing. I've never seen a rig hand playing the drums right there on the platform before, but in all seriousness, 7th Pilot says, Jespo, you're gonna owe 100 nights. That's what the email says. For those of you that have no idea what he's talking about, there's a real talker by the name of 100 Nights that's been in our chat claiming that they will see a 70% yes response to a referendum asking if Alberta should leave Canada. A 70% yes. So I've gone on the record and invited 100 Nights to put their money where their mouth is and bet me 1 Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin if they're so confident on their prediction. We'll bring 100 Nights into the studio. We'll have a lawyer drop the agreement. We'll make it public after establishing that both sides can afford to present a Bitcoin and hand it over if they lose the bet, and we'll make it happen. It'll be the wager heard across the country, 100 Nights. We're still waiting to hear from you to talk at RyanJespersen.com. I'll tell you one thing, 7th Pilot. I like my chances or I wouldn't have made the bet. How about this one from Alex, who says, where is the due process? I'm writing to express my deep frustration, my outrage regarding this survey that the provincial government is pushing through that's affecting parents, educators, and school boards by bypassing established procedures and launching public commentary through media channels as opposed to professional and educational frameworks. You're disregarding the voices of people who know the school system best. We're talking about books and libraries, by the way. He says this isn't responsible governance. This is political maneuvering at the expense of due process. The government positioning a bill as a response to parental concerns. How many parents actually contacted the government about these books in libraries? Were school boards failing to address concerns through existing protocols? This is heavy-handed and unilateral. Alex goes on to say, I have 3 young kids who are avid readers. I absolutely care about the material they're exposed to, which is why I want trained educators, not internet polls, not news conferences shaping those decisions. Who's actually being consulted here? I find it disingenuous the way that certain books like Fun Home are being discussed. We talked about that on the show earlier this week. Are you implying, without stating outright, that these books are being handed out to elementary school students? That kind of rhetorical sleight of hand is misleading and unworthy of a minister of education. As an educator, says Alex, who's read that book, I would be glad to see it included in my children's classes when at the appropriate age to do so. Literature like that book encourages empathy, reflection, and nuanced thinking, which is a skill and a trait that our children need now more than ever. Education policy should not be shaped through surprise press conferences and vague insinuations. It's got to be built on consultation, evidence, and respect for the institutions that serve our children every single day. That from Alex. I love that one, Alex. And by the way, we're speaking to the head of Alberta's libraries on the show, school libraries, that is, early next week. Keep an eye out for that. Rick says, gents, I've really been enjoying the show these days. There's a lot going on, and it's got to be tough for you guys to choose which bonkers story you're going to run with. He says, my rant is about Mark Carney's first day in Parliament. What is going on, wonders Rick. It's a huge privilege to be in the House, yet the Conservatives are acting like a bunch of whining children. He says, do you remember Doug Griffith, CEO of the Edmonton Chamber? He would call these guys, caves. Caves are citizens against virtually everything. Notably to me, I was disappointed to see our very own new MP Billy Morin get up and clap with the rest of the Conservative caucus. He's not that guy. He's a community builder. He's a leader. He's better than that. Rick, Jespo here. It's like his first day on the job in the House. He's a rookie MP. He's got to do what he's got to do. Back to your email. He says, enough is enough. When your job is to hate everything that somebody else does, is that really a job? There's good ideas on both sides of the aisle, so why not work together? That from Rick. Hey, a guy can dream. Gerald, on the Canada Post situation. What bugs me with Canada Post, says Gerald, it's the letter carriers who are being asked to eat this whole issue of Canada Post losing too much money, or let's say costing too much. Does Canada Post really need to revamp and integrate new business plans? Gerald says the answer is absolutely. Would weekend package deliveries and charges to overtime rates paid on weekends help? Absolutely, says Gerald. But beyond that, and the union wanting to preserve jobs, the rest of these problems lay with management. He says the letter carriers didn't create this poor business model. He says, I think the union needs to accept a staggered schedule that has some people working weekends. He says beyond that, the rest sits with the company. The union should hold against part-time workers. Ask for no part-time. Maybe they can get a couple % more. That from Gerald. Make sure you check out our most recent episode of the show, by the way. Great interview with the letter carrier and the president of CUPW Local 730. The guy gives a real rip about what he does. And finally from Jenny, who says, hey, you think that land grabbing is a thing of the past here in Alberta? Think again. She says the Alberta government has stolen $13 billion worth of your land this year in the form of Alberta Health Services facilities. That is, Minister LaGrange and Ministers Long, led by Premier Smith, supported by the entire caucus, stole $13 billion of Alberta's assets. We need to call for a public inquiry because these calls for them to resign have been ignored. Jenny says on the government's watch, the Alberta Energy Regulator has been allowing fossil fuel liabilities to mount to $250 billion by underfunding both orphan wells and liability management. It appears Minister Brian Jean doesn't understand his own portfolio when he suggests the industry will spend almost $1 billion on orphan wells this year. Albertans need to check out Coalition for Responsible Energy and uphold the polluter pay principle. 94% of Albertans agree the polluter should pay, says Jenny. The Premier's only option is to address all the issues that the UCP is creating. We got a recall, using recall legislation. She says, join me and the Recall for Change Alberta resistance community. Change is possible now. Join the resistance. That from Jenny. You can fire up your flamethrower anytime to talk at RyanJespersen.com. These are all real emails from real talkers who are all fired up and proudly presented by our friends at the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. When you beat the heat this weekend with your favorite blizzard, you make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent you. I'll be on the House on Saturday, CBC Radio with Catherine Cullen. We'll be right back here Monday. We can't wait to see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out RyanJespersen.com.